The phone was still warm from his hand. He had set it face down on the kitchen counter and walked into the bathroom. And for some reason, some stupid, ordinary reason, I picked it up to check the time. The screen lit up, and my entire life cracked open. It was not a text. It was a video. It was the video. The one the nurse had taken in the delivery room at 3:17 in the morning when our daughter came into the world screaming, and I was crying, and my husband was standing at my side with tears running down his face. That video. The most sacred 3 minutes and 42 seconds I had ever lived. He had sent it to a woman named Kara. Not forwarded by accident. Sent. With a message. Sent before the hospital even discharged us. Sent while I was still in recovery, still numb from the waist down, still holding our daughter against my chest for the first time and believing, completely, fully, stupidly believing, that the man in that room was mine. By the end of this story, you will understand exactly why I did what I did. And I promise you, you will not be able to judge me for it. I stood in that kitchen for 47 seconds. I know because I counted. Not because I was calm. Because the shock was so total, so absolute, that my brain had gone somewhere quiet and started counting just to survive. 47 seconds. Then I put the phone back down, exactly the way I found it. Face down. Exactly parallel to the edge of the counter. And I walked back to the living room where our 11-day-old daughter was sleeping in her bassinet, and I sat down beside her, and I did not make a single sound. My name is Mara. I am 31 years old. I had been married to Daniel for 4 years. We had tried for 18 months to get pregnant. We had lost one pregnancy before this one. And on the night our daughter Lily was born, while I was still bleeding, still shaking, still being stitched up by a doctor whose name I never learned, my husband sent a video of that moment to the woman he had been sleeping with for 2 years. 2 years. That is not a mistake. That is not a slip. That is a second life. Fully constructed. Fully maintained. Running parallel to mine the entire time we were trying to build something real. I want you to hold that for a second. Because what I did next is the part that people argue about. And before you decide what side you are on, you need to understand who I was before that kitchen counter. Because I was not innocent. I was not perfect. And this story does not belong to a saint. I did not cry that night. I want to be clear about that. Not because I was strong, but because I had already decided, in those 47 seconds, that crying was something I could do later. What I needed first was information. What I needed first was to understand the size of what I was standing inside. So I waited. Daniel came out of the bathroom humming something soft and low, the way he always did when he thought things were good. He kissed the top of my head. He looked into the bassinet and said, "She's so perfect." And I smiled. I smiled and I said, "She really is." That smile cost me something I have never fully gotten back. He went to bed at 10:15. I watched the clock above the stove tick from 10:15 to 10:16 to 10:17. I watched it reach 11. Then midnight. At 12:08 a.m., I heard his breathing change into the long, slow rhythm of deep sleep. I got up. I went to his jacket on the chair by the door. Not his phone, his jacket. Because Daniel was careful with his phone. He always had been. But his jacket had an inside pocket, and in that inside pocket, he kept a folded piece of paper. A habit from his father. Write things down, his father used to say. Paper doesn't get hacked. Paper. There was a receipt from a restaurant I had never been to. April 14th. 2 months before Lily was born. 2 entrees. 1 bottle of wine. The total was $214. I put it in my pocket. Then I went to his phone. I knew his passcode. He had never changed it from the day he set it up in front of me in 2019. I had always thought that meant trust. I understand now that it meant confidence. He was not afraid of me finding the phone because he was certain I never would. I opened it at 12:22 a.m., standing in the dark kitchen with my daughter sleeping 12 feet away. The messages to Kara went back 27 months. 27 months of texts, of voice notes, of photographs. 27 months of a woman I had never heard of being sent pictures of our ultrasounds. Our gender reveal. The nursery we had painted together on a Saturday in March when I was 7 months pregnant and had pain in my hair and thought I had never been happier. He had photographed me that day, standing on the ladder with the roller brush, laughing. He had sent her that photograph. She had replied with a heart. I sat down on the kitchen floor, not because my legs gave out, because something in me decided that the floor was the right place to be, that the ground was what I needed under me. The cold tile pressed against the backs of my thighs through my pajamas, and I read every message from the beginning. I want to tell you what I found, because this is the part that matters. Kara knew about me. She knew my name. She knew I was pregnant. She had asked him 7 months ago what was going to happen when the baby came. And Daniel had written back 3 words that I read 4 times because I could not make them mean something other than what they meant. He had written, "It'll be fine." Not, "I'm ending things." Not, "This has to stop." Not, "I love my wife." He had written, "It'll be fine." Like I was a scheduling conflict. Like I was a flight he had already rescheduled twice and was mildly annoyed about, but fully expected to handle. It'll be fine. I am the problem he expected to handle. I put the phone back. Same angle. Same apps on the screen. I went back to the bassinet. Lily was sleeping with her fists curled under her chin the way she always slept, and I looked at her for a long time. And I thought, she has no idea what world she just came into. Then I made a plan. Here is where you might start to feel differently about me. Because what I did next was not call a lawyer. It was not wake him up and confront him. It was not pack a bag and leave. I went back to his phone. I copied Kara's number into a notes app on my own phone. And then, and this is the part one still think about, I went to the video. The birth video. The one he had sent her. And I watched it. All 3 minutes and 42 seconds. I watched myself screaming through contractions at 3 a.m. I watched Daniel holding my hand with his eyes wet. I watched the nurse catch Lily and place her on my chest. I watched him see his daughter for the first time. And then I watched him pull out his phone and start typing. I had not noticed that in the room. I had been holding Lily. I had been in a place that felt holy. And he had been in that same room. In that same moment, sending a video of it to someone else. He documented it. For her. While I was still on the table. I put his phone down and I went to sit in the dark, and I thought about what kind of person does that. And then I thought about what kind of person stays quiet about it for 11 more days while she figures out what to do next. I decided I was both. I waited 19 days. Not because I was weak. Not because I was hoping I had misunderstood. I waited because I needed to know one thing before I blew the entire structure of our life apart. I needed to know if it was over between them, or if he was still choosing her. So I called Kara. I want you to sit with that for a moment. I called the woman my husband had been sleeping with for over 2 years. I called her from my car in the parking lot of a grocery store on a Tuesday afternoon while Daniel was at work and Lily was home with my mother. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was careful. She already knew who I was. I said, "I know about everything. I'm not calling to scream at you. I'm calling because I want to know if you love him." Silence. 3 seconds of silence that told me more than any answer could have. And then she said, "I did." Did, past tense. I said, "What happened?" She said, and I am giving you her exact words because they changed something in me that has not changed back. She said, "He sent me the video of the birth and I realized I had been waiting 2 years for him to choose me. And instead, he sent me a video of the life he was keeping." I ended it the next day. I did not expect that. I had called expecting to hear that she was in love with my husband, that she believed he was going to leave me, that she was the villain in a story I already understood. Instead, what I heard was a woman who had also been lied to, a woman who had been kept, a woman who had received a video of another woman's child being born and had understood, finally, completely, that she was never going to be chosen, and had walked away. She was not my enemy. She was the mirror version of me, kept in the dark about different things, waiting for different promises that were never going to be kept. I thanked her. I do not know why, but I said, "Thank you for being honest with me." And I hung up. I sat in that parking lot for 22 minutes. He sent her the video of our baby being born, and it was the moment she finally left him. But I was still there. Then I drove home. Daniel was back from work early. He was in the kitchen making dinner. He had music on. He was singing along to something low and comfortable, and Lily was in the bouncy seat by the island. And for a single, brutal second, it looked perfect. It looked like the life I had wanted. It looked like the thing I had spent 4 years building. I walked into the kitchen and I turned off the music. He turned around. I said, "How long did you think you could keep this going?" His face did something I had never seen it do. It did not go pale. It did not go angry. It collapsed, like a building whose supports had been pulled out all at once. Like he had been waiting for this and dreading it, and somewhere, deeply, relievedly waiting for it. He said, "Mara," just my name, nothing else. I said, "I know about Kara. I know about 27 months of messages. I know about the restaurant in April. I know about the photograph of me on the ladder. And I know you sent her that video from the delivery room." He put down the spatula. He did not lie to me. I will give him that one thing, and it is the only thing I give him. He did not lie. He said, "I ended it." I said, "She ended it. There's a difference." He didn't answer. I said, "I want to know one thing. When I was on that table and you were holding my hand, where were you?" He said, "I was with you." I said, "You were texting her." He said, "It was one message. I don't know why I did it." And I looked at him. This man I had married. This man I had cried with over a miscarriage. This man who had held Lily for the first time with shaking hands. And I said the truest thing I have ever said in my life. I said, "I think you do know why. I think you sent her that video because you wanted her to see that you had everything, that you had built this perfect life, and she was never going to be part of it. I think you used our daughter's first moment alive on this earth to make another woman feel small. And I don't think I can forgive that." The kitchen was completely quiet. Lily made a small sound in her bouncy seat. The kind of sound babies make when they are just barely awake, not distressed, not happy, just present, just breathing. He started to cry. I did not. I went and picked up Lily, and I walked into the bedroom, and I closed the door. Not slammed. Closed. Quietly. Because she was in my arms, and she did not need to hear what was happening to her world. That was 7 months ago. Daniel does not live here anymore. He has an apartment 12 minutes away. He sees Lily 4 days a week. He is a good father. That is the thing that makes this story hard to end neatly. He is a genuinely good father. He calls her every night at 7:30, even when she is too small to understand what a phone is. He shows up. He is present. He is everything I would have wanted him to be, deployed 11 months too late. I have not forgiven him. I want to be careful here because I have thought about this more than I have thought about almost anything else. Forgiveness is not the same as pretending. Forgiveness is not the same as reunion. I know people who think that if you cannot forgive someone, you are choosing bitterness. And maybe they are right. I do not know yet. What I know is this. There was a moment in that delivery room that belonged to me. It was mine. It was the most raw, most terrifying, most beautiful moment of my life, and it will never come back. It happened once, and he took a piece of it. Not a memory, not a private thought, but the actual documented proof of it. And he sent it to someone else before the cord was even cut. That is not something I know how to unmake. I have started therapy. My therapist is a woman named Dr. Vasquez who has a plant on her windowsill that she never waters, and yet it refuses to die. I find that comforting in a way I cannot fully explain. She told me something 3 weeks ago that I have not been able to stop thinking about. She said, "The hardest part of leaving a betrayal is that you have to grieve two things at the same time. You have to grieve the person they turned out to be, and you have to grieve the person you thought they were. Those are two separate funerals. Two separate funerals." I think about Daniel at 26, when I met him at a terrible party where the music was too loud and he handed me a drink I had not asked for, and I almost didn't take it. I think about the man who cried in the hospital parking lot the night we lost the first pregnancy. I think about the man on the ladder photograph. Laughing. Genuine. Present. I grieve that man. And then I think about the man standing in the delivery room at 3 a.m., holding my hand and typing with the other, and I grieve the fact that those two men were the same person the entire time. That there was never a moment when the good one existed without the other one hiding inside him. That is the thing about betrayal that the movies never show you. It does not arrive as a stranger. It arrives wearing the face of someone you love. And when it finally shows itself, you have to look back at every single good memory and wonder, was he there? Was the other version always standing in the background of everything I thought was real? Here is what I want to ask you, because I have been sitting with this question for 7 months, and I do not have an answer, and I need to know if you do. If someone is a good father and a terrible husband, if they show up for the child and betray the mother, what do they deserve? Not legally, not practically, but in your heart, in your honest private thought. What do you believe a person like that deserves from the world? And the harder question, the one I ask myself at 2 a.m. when Lily is asleep and the apartment is quiet. Is there a version of this story where I should have stayed? Not for him. Not because what he did was forgivable, but because Lily is going to grow up asking questions. And someday she is going to find out about the video. And someday she is going to have to decide what she thinks of the father who loved her first with his eyes and then immediately reached for his phone. What do I tell her? That is where I live now. Not in anger. Not even in grief. I live in the space between what I know was right and what I am not sure I have fully survived. I have been thinking about this for 7 months, and I still do not have an answer. If you have one, drop it below. I read every single comment. Every one. Because this story is not finished. And maybe one of you has already lived the ending I am still walking toward.